Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, round छोड़ दिया completely. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye. नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवतीरुत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपकदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामीनिति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभो नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. Hare Krishna, reading from Srimad Bhagavatam. By His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So we are reading from Canto 3, Chapter 20, Conversation between Maitreya and Vidura. So, Mudit Krishna Prabhu, up till where we have covered till 12?
Yes, Guruji, 12.
Yeah, thank you.
11,
Thank you so
11.
much.
Up to 11.
11. Okay, we are going to 12. So, this chapter 20 is divided into 4 sections. Right. So, text 1 to 8, it is questions by Shaunaka Rishi. Text 9 to 11 is Vidura's inquiry about Lord Brahma's creation. Then 12 to 15, there is a primary creation is being described. And 16 to 53, Lord Brahma's creation, which is also considered as secondary creation, is described. And within the secondary creation, there are 3 divisions of that creation. Creation of Yakṣas, Rākṣasas, creations of the demons, and creations of Manu and the sages. So text 19 to 21, creation of Yaksha and the Rakshasas. 23 to 37, creation of the demons. And later there is a creation of Manu and the sages. So this is how the whole chapter is divided into. Once again, chapter 20 is divided into 4 sections. Text 1 to 8, Shaunakadi Rishi's questions. So this is from the Subodhini book by His Grace, Gaurang Darshan Prabhu. 9 to 11, Vidura's inquiry about Lord Brahma's creation, the secondary creation. 12 to 15, primary creation is briefly described, and then secondary creation, 16 to 53, is being very elaborately described by Maitreya Muni. Right. So we come to text. Just briefly, we'll see those 3-4 verses. Text 6. Tana kirtaya bhadram te kirtanyodara karmanah rasajnya kon trukteta harililamritam pivan. O Suta Goswami, here Shaunakadi Rishi, they are saying, Bhadram te, all good fortune unto you. Please narrate the activities of the Lord which are all magnanimous, udara karmanah, and worth glorifying. Who will be rasajnya konu truptiyata? Who will be satisfied by hearing such nectarian pastimes of the Lord? Please continue the narration continuously. So very, very beautiful verse. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that the activities of the Lord, they are udara karmana, they are on the spiritual platform. And because they are on the spiritual platform, there is a navanava rasadhamne, udyatam rantumasita. There is a constantly new rasa which flows from such activities of the Lord. And Prabhupada says that one can go on hearing Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam every day and literally thousands and thousands of times, and without fail, one will receive the new information, new revelations about the same subject from this book. So what Srila Prabhupada says is continue your sport reading eternally, that you don't have to stop after, we will go to the second reading of Bhagavatam, third reading of Bhagavatam, Krishna willing, and by the mercy of the Guru Parampara. And then there will be Nava Nava Rasa will always be there. Text 7. Evam ugrashrava prishta ऋषिभिर् नैमिषायनैः भगवती अर्पिता अध्यात्म तानाह श्रूयतामिति. After being thus asked by the great sages of Naimisharanya, Ugra Shrava, who was very intense in hearing, Ugra Shrava, Shravanam, and his mind, Bhagavati Adhyat, Arpita Adhyatma, Bhagavati unto Supreme Lord, Arpita, dedicated to Adhyatma. Look at the word meaning of Adhyatma here. Adhyatma means mind. So his mind was completely dedicated to the Supreme Lord. He began to speak. Text 8, Sutta Uvacha. So here Sudha Goswami is describing how the pastimes of the Lord, they are Svamayaya. And this personality of Godhead, Harer Dhritakradotano Svamayaya Nishamya Goruddharahanam Rasatalat Leelam Hiranyaksham Hatam Sanjata Harsho Munimaha Bharata. O Bharat, Vidura, who is a descendant of Bharat, as he was delighted to hear the story of the Lord Varahadev, and then he began to inquire further. The Lord's activities are conducted by Svamayaya. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains, the Lord assumed the form of the boar out of his own potency, Svamayaya. It is not the material positioning, just like it is done for the living entity. Living entity attains the form by his own karma, karmana daiva netrena. Or Bhagavad Gita describes, Urdhvam gachanti satvastha, madhye tishtanti rajasa. So based on one's guna, one will receive the next body, but when Lord takes a form, it is not because of the karma of the Lord, it is Svamayaya, which is under full control. And later Srila Prabhupada says that the Mayavadi interpretation, sometimes Mayavadis, they say, just see, the Lord is also accepting the form. He is also forced by Maya, forced by karma. But that is completely contrary to the understanding of Bhagavad Gita, which says, Daivi Hesha Gunamayi, that the Mayadhikshena Prakriti, that the material nature is under my full supervision and control. But it is the Jivatma. So Prabhupada says Maya acts. But Maya acts on Brahman, but which Brahman? It is the part and parcel Brahman and not on Parabrahman. And the example here is just like the cloud may capture the sun ray, but not the sun. Right. So very, very beautiful example Prabhupada gives. Cloud capturing one part and parcel of the sun, but not the sun himself, and who is the creator of even the cloud. So that is amazing analogy of cloud being created by the sun, captures the sun ray, but cannot even think of capturing the sun himself. So the Maya, there is no question of Maya acting on the Supreme Lord. Maya can act only on the Jivatma, who is part and parcel of the Brahman. Now we enter the second section of this chapter, texts 9 to 11, Vidura inquiring about Lord's creation. So Vidura, he inquires, what did Brahma create? What did Brahma do to create the living entities after evolving the Prajapatis? Then he inquires about what did the Prajapatis do? How did they further create? And how did they evolve this manifested world? Third question. And the fourth question is, did they evolve it separately or it was a joint evolution? So he is more inquiring about evolution. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that the Shabda Praman is always greater than Pratyaksha Praman. Pratyaksha means the experimental knowledge has the limitation where the experiments can reach. Mental speculation has the limitation where the mind can reach. But the Shabda Praman, one can attain the knowledge beyond one's experience. Right? And therefore, Prabhupada says here, therefore, the word used in text 9, beautiful word is Avyakta Margavit. Avyakta Margavit means knower of that which is we do not know. So our knowledge is limited only to our sense perception, experimental knowledge. But if we want to have the knowledge beyond the experiments, knowledge about the personality who is beyond experiment and mathematics, adokshaja, then one has to rely on Shabda Praman. And Shabda Praman, Prabhupada says, precisely the first Avyakta Margavit is, first authority is Brahmaji, the next authority is Narada, and every personality in the disciplic succession is one authority after another. Everyone is Avyakta Margavit, and they can award the knowledge which is beyond the experimental knowledge. Very, very beautiful purport Srila Prabhupada writes here. Avyakta Margavit. This is the word here. Okay. So now we come to text 12. So text 12 to 15, we come to the third section of these four sections, and this is the primary creation. Text 12. Maitreya uvacha daivena durvitarkena parena nimishena cha jatakshobhat bhagavato mahanasid gunatrayat. Translation.
Maitreya said, when the equilibrium of the combination of the three modes of nature was agitated by the unseen activity of the living entity, by Mahavishnu, and by the force of time, the total material elements were produced. Purport. The cause of the material creation is described here lucidly. The first cause is Daiva, or the destiny of the conditioned soul. The material creation exists for the conditioned soul who wanted to become false lord for sense enjoyment. One cannot trace out the history of when the conditioned soul first desired to lord it over material nature, but in Vedic literature, we always find that the material creation is meant for the sense enjoyment of the conditioned soul. There is a nice verse which says that the sum and substance of the conditioned soul's sense enjoyment is that as soon as he forgets his primary duty to render service to the Lord, he creates an atmosphere of sense enjoyment, which is called Maya. That is the cause of material creation. Another word used here is Durvitarakayena. No one can argue about when and how the conditioned soul became desirous of sense enjoyment. But the cause is there. Material nature is an atmosphere meant only for the sense enjoyment of the conditioned soul, and it is created by the personality of Godhead. It is mentioned here that in the beginning of the creation, the material nature or Prakriti is agitated by the personality of Godhead Vishnu. There are three Vishnus mentioned. One is Mahavishnu, another is Garbhodakshayi Vishnu, and the third is Kshirodakshayi Vishnu. The first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam discusses all these three Vishnus. And here also it is confirmed that Vishnu is the cause of creation. From Bhagavad Gita also we learn that Prakriti begins to work and it's still working under Krishna's or Vishnu's glance of superintendence. But the Supreme Personality of Godhead is unchanging. One should not mistakenly think that because the creation emanates from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he has therefore transformed into this material cosmic manifestation. He exists in his personal form always, but the cosmic manifestation takes place by his inconceivable potency. The workings of the energy are difficult to comprehend, but it is understood from Vedic literature that the conditioned soul creates his own destiny and is offered a particular body by the laws of nature under the superintendence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who always accompanies him as Paramatma. Hare Krishna.
So now here Maitreya begins his narration. He says, Daivena durvitarkena. So Maitreya said, when the equilibrium of the combination of the three modes of material nature is agitated by the unseen activity of the living entity, why unseen? Because the living entity, they will continue their journey one kalpa after another and one brahmanda after another. Even after the death of Brahmaji, when Brahmaji goes back home, back to Godhead, the living entity, they enter the body of Mahavishnu. The karma and the desires of the living entity, they will be stored in the unseen form. And when, as soon as they start acting, there will be creation. Right. So, and this is how the entire cosmic cycle continues. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, the cause of the material creation is very lucidly explained here. The first cause is Daiva, or the destiny of the conditioned soul. Right. Prabhupada says one cannot actually trace out the history of when the conditioned soul first desired to lord his own material nature. So when and how the conditioning began is achintya. It's very difficult to understand. But one can surely know that one is conditioned. Right. So Prabhupada says how it began, there can be some trace, and how it began is very beautifully explained in Chaitanya Charitamrita. How it began? The sum and substance is that when the conditioned soul forgot the sambandha with the Supreme Lord, and when he forgot his primary duty, what is the primary duty of the conditioned soul? Jivera Swarupa hai, Krishnir Nityadas. This is the primary duty. That is the primary duty means Swarupa. So that is this Jivera Swarupa. And when a conditioned soul forgets the primary duty, then what happens? That is to render service. He creates an atmosphere of sense enjoyment. And this is called as Maya. So primary duty is Jivera Swarupa hai, Krishnir Nityadas. But then when the soul forgets this duty, Krishna bhuliya jiv, and then what he desires, he wants to sense enjoyment, bhogavancha kare, and then immediately the Maya is there, nikatastha maya tara jhapati adhare. So this is called as daivena. Daivena means the destiny of the conditioned soul. Next is durvitarkena. Durvitarkena means no one can argue that when and how the conditioning of the conditioned soul began. What is the cause? So Srila Prabhupada example is when you are having a dengue or malaria, you just don't argue with which mosquito bit him and where exactly, and exactly which mosquito. No, you have the symptoms, the conditioning is there, the fever is there. That means there is conditioning. So as such, previously also Prabhupada says, it is very difficult to trace out the history of conditioning of the living entity. And therefore, the conditioning is also called as life after life, or for a prolonged period. And then there is a description of Vishnu's Trini Rupani, the three forms of the Vishnus, Mahavishnu, Garbhodakshai Vishnu, and Kshirodakshai Vishnu. And these three Vishnus, they are very elaborately discussed in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. These Vishnus, they control Maya. Sa Aikshataha. So the living entity who is desires to enjoy away from the Lord, apart from the Lord, that living entity is transferred from spiritual world to the material world by glance of the Lord. And this glance of the Lord is also very auspicious and also called as Shiva, Lord Shiva. And Maya is under full control of the Lord, and thus the living entity is transformed, and this is called as Jata Kshobhat Bhagavato. The Kshobha is created, the equilibrium is agitated, but the Lord is not agitated by that Kshobha. This is very important. Prabhupada says the Lord is not transformed by this Kshobha. Right? Lord remains the same, avikaro. Right? There is no vikara in the Lord, but there is a Kshobha created. Sometimes Mayavadis say, just like you take one paper and cut it into pieces and the original paper is lost. Similarly, in the course of creation of the matter and the material world, the Lord himself got distributed everywhere. So everything is Lord and there is no one supreme Lord because the Lord is distributed. Just like one will cut the paper into different parts, and by becoming different parts of the paper, the original paper is the newspaper kind of a paper, is lost. But that is not the case. The Lord remains as He is. He is beyond any kshobha. So this is very important to understand. And this is how the conditioning, this is how the living entity receives a particular body under the laws of the material nature. But still, the Lord will accompany the living entity as Paramatma. Text 13. Rasapradhanan mahatas Trilingo Daiva Choditat Jatah Sasarja Bhutadir Diyadadini Panchashah. Translation.
Translation: as impelled by the destiny of the jiva, of the false ego, which is of three kinds, evolved from the Mahatattva, in which the element of Rajas predominates. From the ego, in turn, evolved many groups of five principles. Purport: the primordial matter or Prakriti, material nature, consisting of three modes, generates four groups of five. The first group is called elementary and consists of earth, water, fire, air, and ether. The second group of five is called Tanamatra, referring to the subtle elements, sense objects, sound, touch, form, taste, and smell. The third group is the five sense organs for acquiring knowledge: eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin. The fourth group is the five working senses: speech, hands, feet, anus, and genitals. Some say that there are five groups of five. One group is the sense objects, one is the five elements, one is the five sense organs for acquiring knowledge, another is the senses for working, and the fifth group is the five deities who control these divisions. Hare Krishna.
So impelled by the destiny of the jiva, the false ego, daiva choditat, which is of three kinds, evolved from Mahat Tattva. So now we are continuing. So here, what briefly is being, these all topics are very elaborately discussed in the second canto. And here, these topics are being, Maitreya Muni is touching these topics. Just before going to the second paragraph, he is just touching the first paragraph. So like that, he is touching the first creation, the primary creation, and slowly moving to secondary creation. So from this false ego, then turns out to be the five principle, many groups of the five principle. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada says that the primordial matter or prakriti consists of the three modes of the material nature, generates four groups of five to total in 20. Right. So this precisely is the activity of Sankhya. And of course, we will be just counting. They will be interested in Sankhya Yogi, they will be interested in realizing all this and merging one into another and trying to attain, even the subtler forms themselves. The first group of five is Panchamahabhut. Bhumirapo Analo Vayu Kham. So these are the first group of five. Second group of five, they are the Tanmatras. What are the Tanmatras? These are the subtle elements or the sense objects. Shabda, Sparsha, Gandha, Rasa. So Rasa, Sparsha, Shabda, Gandha, and one more. This is sound, touch, form, Akruti. Okay, so this will be the second form of Tanmatra. So first is Panchamahabhut, second is Tanmatra, third five are Jnanendriya, and fourth five are Karmendriya. So the knowledge acquiring senses and the senses which are active senses. So this is how this creation takes place. Text 14. Tani chaikaikaksha swashtrum asamarthani bhautikam samhatya daiva yogena haimam andam asrujan avasrujan. Translation.
Separately unable to produce the material universe, they combined with the help of the energy of the Supreme Lord, and were able to produce a shining egg.
So they will now combine with the energy of the Supreme Lord, and thus they will produce a shining egg. Right. Text 15. Soshaya trishtabdi salile andakoshe niratmakah sagram vai varsha sahastrat anvasat tama ishwarah. Translation.
For over 1,000 years, the shiny egg lay on the waters of the causal ocean in the lifeless state. Then the Lord entered in it as Garbhodaksha Vishnu. Purport of this verse, it appears that all the universes are floating in the causal ocean.
Yeah. So now this shining egg, it was laying on the causal ocean in the lifeless state, and after 1,000 years, the Lord entered as Garbhodaksha Vishnu, and we have seen this at how the Lord enters as the prana, and therefore is called as Paramatma. Why? Because just like when the Atma enters the matter sizzles and grows. Similarly, when Paramatma enters the Brahmanda comes to life, and Brahmanda becomes active. Now we continue the final section of this chapter, that is text 16 to 53. Very elaborately, there is a description of Lord Brahma's creation. Okay, first we will see the creation of the Yakṣas and Rākṣasas. Text 16. Tasya nabher abhupad padmana sahasrakaror urudidhiti sarvajivaniko yauko yatra swayam bhutaswarat. Translation.
From the navel of the percent of Godhead of Godhead, Garbhodaksha Vishnu, sprouted a lotus flower, effulgent like 1,000 blazing suns. This lotus flower is the reservoir of all conditioned souls, and the first living entity who came out of the lotus flower was the omnipotent Brahma. Purport. It appears from this verse that the conditioned souls who rested within the body of the personality of Godhead after the dissolution of the last creation came out in the sum total form of the lotus. This is called Hiranyagarbha. The first living entity to come out was Lord Brahma, who is independently able to create the rest of the manifested universe. The lotus is described here as effulgent as the glare of 1,000 suns. This indicates that the living entities, as parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord, are also of the same quality, since the Lord also diffuses his bodily glare known as Brahmajyoti. The description of the Vaikuntha Loka, as stated in Bhagavad Gita and other Vedic literatures, is confirmed herewith. In Vaikuntha, the spiritual sky, there is no need of sunshine, moonshine, electricity, or fire. Every planet there is self-effulgent like the sun.
So, from the navel of the personality of Godhead sprouted a lotus flower, effulgent like the 1,000 blazing suns. So, the Lord is Padmanabha, and coming out is Hiranyagarbha. And the first living entity came out, that is Brahmaji. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains the conditioned souls are rested within the body of the personality, came out as the sum total form of the lotus and known as Hiranyagarbha. And the lotus is described here as the glaring effulgence. And the living entity also has the effulgence because living entity is spiritual in nature. So just like the Lord has infinite effulgence, similarly the living entity has the finite effulgence, but he is also living entity is also effulgent, just like nature of everything spiritual, like Vaikuntha. Vaikuntha description is there that there is no need of na tad bhasayate suryo, na shashanko, na pavakaha. So every planet there is self-effulgence and every living entity is also self-effulgent. And similarly, the Supreme Lord is infinitely effulgent. Text 17. सोनुविष्टो भगवता यशेते सलिलाशये लोकसंस्थान यथा पूर्वं निर्ममे संस्थया स्वया. Translation.
When that Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is lying on the Garbhodak ocean, entered the heart of Brahma, Brahma brought his intelligence to bear, and with the intelligence invoked, he began to create the universe as it was before. Purport: at a certain time, the personality of Godhead Karanodakshai Vishnu lies in the Karana ocean and produces many thousands of universes from his breathing. Then he enters again into each and every universe as Garbhodakshai Vishnu and fills up half of each universe with his own perspiration. The other half of the universe remains vacant, and that vacant region is called outer space. Then the lotus flower sprouts from his abdomen and produces the first living creature, Brahma. Then again, as Kshirodakshay Vishnu, the Lord enters into the heart of every living entity, including Brahma. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, 15th chapter. The Lord says, I am seated in everyone's heart, and by me are remembrance and forgetfulness made possible. As a witness of the activities of the individual entities, the Lord gives each one remembrance and intelligence to act according to his desire at the time he was annihilated in his last birth in the last millennium. This intelligence is invoked according to one's own capacity or by the law of karma. Brahma was the first living entity, and he was empowered by the Supreme Lord to act in charge of the mode of passion. Therefore, he was given the required intelligence, which is so powerful and extensive that he is almost independent of the control of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Just as a highly posted manager is almost as independent as the owner of a firm, Brahma is described here as independent because, as the Lord's representative to control the universe, he is almost as powerful and independent as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord, as the supersoul within Brahma, gave him the intelligence to create. Therefore, the creative power of every living entity is not his own. It is by the grace of the Lord that one can create. There are many scientists and great workers in this material world who have wonderful creative force, but they act and create only according to the direction of the Supreme Lord. A scientist may create many wonderful inventions by the direction of the Lord, but it is not possible for him to overcome the stringent laws of material nature by his intelligence, nor is it possible to acquire such intelligence from the Lord, for the Lord's supremacy would then be hampered. It is stated in this verse that Brahma created the universe as it was before. This means that he created everything by the same name and form as in the previous cosmic manifestation.
So now, Sonu Vishto Bhagavata Yashete Shadilashaye. When the Supreme Lord was laying on the Garbhodak ocean, he entered the heart of Brahmaji. And Brahmaji brought his intelligence to bear, and the intelligence invoked, and he began to create the universe as it was before. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes that the creation happens. So there is a Karanodakshai Vishnu. He is laying on the Karana ocean and produces many thousands of universes upon his breathing. Brahma Samhita beautifully explains this. Yasyaika Nishvasita Kala Mathavalambya. So by his Nishvasana, all the millions and billions of universes are created. And then the Lord enters as Garbhodakshai Vishnu and fills the half the part of the Brahmanda with his own perspiration, called as Garbhodak ocean. And remaining half is left vacant, which we call as outer space. So where the Brahmanda is expanding in the remaining half, which we call as outer space. And then the same Supreme Lord, he then enters the heart of Brahmaji, and Brahmaji, he receives the intelligence to create the creation, right? So this is Tene Brahma Hridaya Adikavaye. So Adikavi Brahma, the Lord is entering and giving him the intelligence. And this intelligence, what is the intelligence? Intelligence to make the living entity again aware what they desired and what are their previous desires and how they want to lord it over the material nature and how to enjoy the material nature to their fullest satisfaction and trying to be lord and master of the material nature. So the living entity is put into a deep sleep, and this is a longer sleep for the living entity. And again, the living entity is woken up. Brahmaji is woken up. Lord enters the heart of Brahmaji, gives him the knowledge. Brahmaji starts creating. Living entity also starts creating. And Prabhupada says, as a witness, he allows this activity, upadrishtacha, anumantacha, bharta, bhukta, maheshwara. Right? So this remembrance also comes from the Supreme Lord. And this is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Sarvasya chaham hridi sannivishto mattaha smritir jnanam apohanam cha. Apohanam means, smriti means remembrance, apohanam means forgetfulness. So both remembrance and forgetfulness comes from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then the living entity is again woke up from the, this deep sleep, will again start with the identification that is previously explained, forgetting the primary duty. Again he will start chasing his different material dreams. So Lord Brahmaji here is referred as Swarat. And Prabhupada says anybody, a confidential servant can act almost on the level of the master, and he enjoys a great independence. And being a very, very confidential servant of the Supreme Lord, Brahmaji, he can control the universe almost at his will, and therefore he is called as Swarat. And further, then there is a description of the creative power. The creative power within Brahmaji is actually originated by the mercy of the Supreme Lord. So there are many living entities who may have very tremendous creative power, but all the creative power comes from the personality of the Godhead, right? So wonderful activities of the creation, each act and each creation actually indicates the personality of Godhead. And Prabhupada said the scientists should not be falsely proud about their creative power. No, that the brain of the scientist, like Prabhupada used to say, somebody was admiring Einstein, and Prabhupada said, who created the brain of Einstein? You say that Einstein was great, but who created the brain of Einstein? So the brain of the scientist is created by the Supreme Lord, and therefore this original creative power comes from the Supreme Lord. But again, Prabhupada writes here, Brahmaji began to create everything within the universe as it was before. This means that he created everything by the same name and form as it was in the previous cosmic manifestation, and therefore the material nature is called as punah punah charvita charvanana. We may think that I have this form, I have this particular activity, and the creation, it may be all very new and great, but the whole thing the living entity has done time and time again, punarapi jananam punarapi maranam, and the history of the universe, Prabhupada writes, practically repeats itself the same. Just like if you go to a jail, Tihar jail or Yeravada jail, what will be the activities of the inmates of the jail? The same activities, some here and there, isne usko peeta, usne usko peeta, isne, they will have some utensils. They are fighting with some utensils. They are fighting over that sukha roti. And, the activities will almost remain the same if you take the 1 year history of the jail, right? Similarly, the activity of the universe just repeats itself, and this is facilitated by Lord Vishnu in different forms. So we will conclude here and continue tomorrow. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Thank you,
Jai.
Prabhupada. Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone.
Prabhupada.
Hare
Thank you.
Krishna.
Thank you.
Prabhuji, Hare
Thank you,
Krishna.
Prabhupada. Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you, everyone. Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji.